Hey folks, it's Real Honesty with John Rittland. I'm John Rittland. I'm back with more of the best side of WCW Rivalries. This is finishing off my little series where I've talked about the top 20. And I've done two shows on each side, best and worst. And here's the final six for the best. So I hope you enjoy it. And I also want to say that I'm doing this countdown mainly to talk about my favorite rivalries. Later in 2017, I might actually take a select rivalry for each show and actually do a best feuds, worst feuds thread where instead of just doing like a countdown and briefly talking about them, I may actually go more in depth and go more into my favorite matches and moments and say why that stuff was here. But these are ones for you to check out, so I hope you enjoy them. Number 6, Sting versus Vader. Their stuff in 92 in particular was really good. Their match at Great American Bash 92, Starrcade 92 were really, really good quality. I preferred the Starrcade 92 match better. Their White Castle Fear strap match in 93 was also good. And they did have a good match at Slamboree 94. Wait, was it Slamboree 94? I think it was. I think it was Slamboree 94. That was actually a really, really good match. And Vader could always get a top quality performance out of almost anybody. And Sting was able to take it to the big man like few could. And it was actually a really, really good dynamic and a really good feud. And one that I really enjoyed in the earlier days of WCW, where I thought the in-ring product was fantastic, even if management wasn't. Number 5, the feud of the year, and the reason I'm wearing this shirt, Randy Savage shirt. Feud of the year 1997, Randy Savage versus Diamond Dallas Page. 3 pay-per-views is what they had. 3 pay-per-view matches throughout the year. I believe it was Spring Stampede, Great American Bash 97, and Halloween Havoc 97. And all were really, really good matches. Even if they had some shenanigans and interference, and a couple of them were like wild brawls and goofy. Spring Stampede actually kicked it off fine by DDP, giving the Diamond Cutter to Randy Savage and kicking off that whole feud great. It's a great proper way to kick it off. Then you had Great American Bash 97, which was more great stuff, and same with the Halloween Havoc 97 match. And what made really great out of this is they developed friendship out of the whole thing. And the DDP even called to thank him and wish him a happy Thanksgiving because of what this feud did for him. And that Randy Savage was very gracious and very grateful that DDP was so gracious about it. It was just a really, really good feud because they had such a good... They were always good pre-planners. They pre-planned like a lot. Like DDP and Randy Savage respectively did that. So it's like, okay, how are these matches going to go? And they were picture perfect. They were just great matches, wild brawls, and they were wonderful and a great personal feud. It was just great to watch. Number 4, Dusty versus Flair. It's going to be hard to encapsulate the Dusty versus Ric Flair feud in like a minute and a half or 2 minutes, but I'll do my best. Dusty and Flair just always had this great, great chemistry. Dusty was a common man, the guy that did not look like he should be a wrestler, but could go 60 to 90 minutes if need be. He was a 3-time NWA champion. Him and Flair had, fought over the title numerous times. They headlined 2 Starrcades in a row. The 1985 match was a little better in my opinion, even though the $1 Million Challenge in 84 was built up well. Stopping due to blood loss kind of bothered me, but I know that happened in other matches in that era. I just did not grow up in that era enough to necessarily appreciate it. I didn't care for the blood loss stipulation, but I understood why they did it. And then they did the advance, and a great advance, and build up to Starrcade 85. where Dusty won, but then the title change was reversed. And they held off on, I think, until Great American Bash and the Great American Bash tour in 86. But still, it was a great moment. It was great to see Dusty and Flair. And, Dusty versus a Horseman, if you really want to get technical. There was just so much great stuff about that feud. And the promos in particular were just dynamite. Those guys were just absolutely wonderful on the mic. Flair was just such a great heel. Dusty was such a great babyface that people had such sympathy for. And it created so many great Dusty quotes and great Flair quotes. It's really hard to encapsulate it all in just like 2 minutes, like I said. But the feud was wonderful, and the matches they could have on the house shows, on the big events, and on the pay-per-views were absolutely great. And it's a damn shame we actually didn't get a chance to see this in WWE. I mean, could you have imagined Dusty versus Flair at, like, say, Mania 7? If Dusty hadn't left left and gone back to WCW, we could have possibly seen Dusty versus Flair at maybe even Survivor Series 91. That would have been kind of cool to see. Have them on opposite teams and then maybe have them face off in the 92 Rumble. But Dusty went back to WCW for the reasons that he did. And we wouldn't have got great stuff like the Chamber of Horrors match if he hadn't gone back. Great in the sense it was a train wreck, but hey, Dusty went where he went, Flair went where he went. They had a great feud when they did. Number 3, Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express. Another, it's going to be difficult to encapsulate the minute or two. The great matches that they had in various territories, including Jim Crockett Promotions and early WCW. They had a great one at Wrestle War 90. They had other great ones in earlier years. Rock and Roll Express were great baby faces. Midnight Express, Stan Lane, and Bobby Eaton in particular, with Jim Cornette as their manager. So easily disliked. Jim Cornette was such a great manager, and it's a shame that he's kind of blacklisted himself now by being so outspoken. I think Jim Cornette would fit in as a manager if you just had him be a manager. Don't have him have creative input, but have him be a manager. I think it would be great. Because Jim Cornette can get people really fired up. But it wouldn't work in WWE because he's burned too many bridges with people in WWE. And by his own admission. But he did great with the Midnight Express and the tag matches, the fluidity, the great matches that they would have were absolutely wonderful. And that's why they're here at number 3. Number 2, Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat. A feud, I believe, over the NWA TV title, NWA or Mid-Atlantic TV title, the US title, the world title, even at like Boogie Jam 84, if I remember right, which was a special event. It was on Ricky Steamboat's DVD special. I can't remember. I think it was a nearly hour-long Broadway. I don't think it was a 2 out of 3 falls match. Because that was Clash of Champions 89. But that Boogie Jam match is really good. So I encourage everybody, since I don't think it's on the network, if you want to watch it, get the Ricky Steamboat set. If you have an FYE in your area, or check Amazon. Because FYE is usually trying to like clear out their wrestling stuff. Last time I was there, I think the DVD set was only $5. But that was a good match, and then their trilogy of matches in '89, Chi-Town Rumble, Wrestle War, Clash of Champions, the 2 out of 3 falls, and then Wrestle War. And that was great stuff. They had a forgotten match, in my opinion, it was just as good as some of that stuff, at Spring Stampede 94. Which is a pay-per-view I feel is very underrated, and I think is something that people could really set their watch to on, hey, this is how we could make a pay-per-view. I thought Spring Stampede 94 was very quality. Maybe not perfect, but it certainly built up its matches right. But Flair and Steamboat, whether they had great matches just on house shows or whatever, they went 100 miles an hour and always delivered well. And did not really have to go over much of anything. It was great stuff, and their matches were always magic. And number 1, Flair versus Sting. Because it had to be Flair versus Sting. From the first ever Clash of the Champions, the 45-minute Broadway, the matches that they would have in 89, at like Starrcade 89, at Great American Bash 90 when Sting finally won the title after coming back from his knee injury. The Black Scorpion stuff was shit. That was horrible. But the stuff they would have, like, I mean, they wouldn't really get to have much in 91 because Flair would leave, and then Flair was gone for a couple years, and then they had it where I believe they faced off in June at the Clash of Champions. It was either Clash of Champions or it was a TV taping where Flair had beaten Sting and then went on to face Hogan. But yeah, they faced off on the first Nitro, they faced off on the last Nitro, and that was a great way to close out the whole thing. Flair and Sting always had great matches, and it was very rare that Sting was the heel and Flair was the babyface. But there was always great matches, and Flair always talked highly of Sting, and Sting vice versa. He always had a dynamite feud, and that's why it's here at number 1, because it encapsulated WCW to an absolute T. So that's what I gotta say. So if you've seen the first 2 installments of my best list, and this one, do you agree? Do you disagree? Like, share, comment, and subscribe. My Twitter link is in the description. It's been Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin, and I'll see you soon.